Hi everyone, Troy Martin, TM Fitness. How do you know if someone does CrossFit? Don't worry, they'll tell you. So in this whiteboard edition, I'm talking about nutrition for CrossFit with the registered trademark. So when it comes to eating for CrossFit performance, let's start off with the things you shouldn't be doing. Paleo, keto and the zone diet have no place in a CrossFit box. Sorry CrossFit, I know that CrossFit Level 1 recommends the zone diet, but as a nutrition coach who has read the evidence and understands how the human body works, the zone diet is one of the worst diets for CrossFit, trust me. Don't get me wrong, these diets work and they have their place. The zone diet, for instance, will create weight loss in the general population because it's quite a highly calorie restricted diet. The reason keto and paleo work is because they restrict carbohydrates, so they're creating an energy deficit. As a CrossFit athlete, you don't want to be restricting calories massively. You need to be fully fueled. So the reason these don't work for CrossFit is because CrossFit has a high glycolytic demand. What does that mean? A high glycolytic demand means that the exercise is at a high enough intensity that it's burning off the glycogen reserves, that fuel source that's in your muscles and your liver. The more intense the exercise, the faster you'll burn that glycogen off, which means that your diet needs to be high in carbohydrates. So you're going to be wanting to get instant energy from sugar, yes, sugar, gels, juices, fruits, sweets, and this is going to be fairly unique to each individual. I've had athletes that do really well on gels, but don't do very well on fruits and dried fruit in particular. It gives them gastric distress. And a lot of athletes who are fine on fruit find the gels give them a lot of gastric distress. So work out what's best for you. And then the rest of your carbohydrates, the bulk of your diet is going to be coming from starches. So tubers, potatoes, rice, oats, whole grains, pulses, you get the picture. So why am I talking about this and saying these are wrong? They're wrong for CrossFit because the evidence, and I'm basing my evidence-based approach on the recommendations of the International Society of Sports Nutrition, the ISSN, because they have a bunch of really clever scientists who have put in tens of thousands of man hours into researching all the available data, and they have come up with some pretty sound positional stances on this. If you're a coach, read them. It will revolutionize your practice. If you're an athlete, read them. It will revolutionize your athleticism. So in 2010, they had they released their stance on sports nutrition, and then last year they released a couple of papers, one on diets for body composition and one on nutrient timing. Read them. They're really, really worth reading. Okay, so that's this stuff out the way. We've cleared that up. So highly restrictive diets, bad. High carbohydrate diets, good. So what about the practicalities? So when you're setting up your diet for CrossFit, first of all, you need to know what your kilocalories are. You need to know your total daily energy expenditure. You can do that using a predictive equation. So work out what your BMR is, and then multiply that using a physical activity ratio multiplier. Now, I've got three numbers here because if you're entry level at CrossFit, you can probably, maybe you're doing 3 or 4 sessions a week, and if you're like most people in the general population, you're otherwise reasonably sedentary. So you can say that you're moderately active and use the 1.55 multiplier. If you're a little more serious with your training, or if you have a very active job, then you might go higher to the 1.725 multiplier. And then if you're an elite CrossFit athlete, which means like 2 to 3 training sessions per day, 1.9 or above. And remember, these are just ballpark figures. I talked about energy balance and setting up your macros in previous videos, so go back and look at those. This is just a starting point. If you're more experienced with tracking calories, you can just take an average and go with that. Okay, so once you've got your calories worked out, how much protein should you be consuming? We say 1.6 to about 2.5 grams per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so I say for CrossFit, as a good starting point, go for 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight at least 4 times a day, roughly spaced out even about every 3 or 4 hours, and that's going to maximize muscle protein synthesis and improve muscle recovery. Carbohydrates, so based on the evidence for Moderately to highly active athletes, 5 to 8 grams per kilogram of body weight. So if you're using these activity multipliers, if you're moderately active at 1.55, you can probably go with around 5 grams. If you're more active, then you can go up to 8 grams. And then if you're in this elite level and you've got a high training load, or high training intensity volume, or you're at competition, go even higher, 10 to 12 grams per kilogram of body weight. And remember, a lot of those carbohydrates are going to be coming from gels and juices and energy bars and carbohydrate drinks. And then fats, really simple. Aim for around 25% of your total calories being from fats, and that will be enough to optimize hormone function and cognitive function. Okay, so what about nutrient timing? So prior to exercise, you want to be looking at around 50 grams of carbohydrate from more simple sources. It doesn't have to be refined sugars. It could be a banana and a Lucozade, something like that. And you want that to be at least 30 minutes prior to exercise. That's your pre-workout snack. Post-workout, not so important if you're only doing one session that day, but if you're doing multiple sessions in a day, then immediately after workout, you want roughly a 3-to-1 ratio of carbohydrate to protein. So it might be a meal. So if you've got a meal that's got, say, 150 grams of carbohydrate in it, you're going to have 50 grams of protein in there. I mean, that's a big meal, but you get the picture. If it's a drink, then it might be something that's got, say, 30 grams of carbohydrate and 10 grams of protein. And then intra-workout, because you're going to be sweating a lot, it's probably a good idea to have some electrolytes in your water bottle, just to replace those lost minerals through all that sweat that you're doing. And then daily supplements, the ones that work according to the evidence: creatine, the most research-based sports supplement on the market, and it's perfect for the demands of CrossFit. Beta-alanine, you've got to be careful. Beta-alanine, it's not dangerous, but it does have an unusual side effect that makes your skin feel tingly. Some people don't like that, but don't be alarmed. If you take beta-alanine and you feel tingly, you're not dying, you haven't got radiation poisoning. It's just a harmless side effect of the ingredients in that supplement. And then citrulline malate. Now I've put a question mark there because according to the evidence, it's one that's been recommended in recent times, but there's new evidence coming out now that's suggesting it might not be as good as we thought, and it seems to be quite a high prevalence of non-responders to SitMal. So, you know, if you take it and you feel that it works for you, then keep taking it. It's certainly not going to be doing you any harm. And then the other one I would recommend is omega-3s. At least 2 to 3 grams, that's a minimum, 2 to 3 grams from EPA and DHA. So it's not total omegas, that's 2 to 3 grams of EPA and DHA from fish oils. You're not going to get that amount of DHA from plant-based omega-3s. And the reason for the omega-3s, it has been shown to reduce inflammation and may help with muscle soreness. So when you're training like a maniac, like you do when you're performing CrossFit, that might be a lifesaver. There's a couple of others you can think about: magnesium, perhaps, vitamin D, just for general, support of health. But they're the main ones in terms of physical performance that is specific to CrossFit. So that is CrossFit nutrition in a nutshell. So I've been Troy. Please subscribe to the channel, please like this video, share it with your friends, and remember, the first rule of CrossFit is to always talk about CrossFit.